This is so weird, guys. I don't know. This is not a scripted video. So we all know how these go. And my hair is different, so that makes me anxious. Okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3. Hello, everybody. My name is Joanna, and I am a lesbian. I mean, this isn't news if you have been on my channel, if you have watched any of my videos. Actually, I made a point of saying I had a crush on Sailor Bell in my first ever video about High School Musical, the series, because I wanted to be out, like, right from the get-go. I can't with my hair falling on my face. I hate it so much, but it's a hairdo. I'm going to have to deal with it. Ugh. Anyway, it's Pride Month, guys, and I wasn't planning on making a whole video about this because I feel like this is so 2018 YouTube core, but I wanted to tell the story of how I discovered I was into girls and not into boys, because you'll see why. When I tell my story, it will all make sense, but I just felt like making this video. Now that it's Pride Month, and it feels really good to have a place where I can totally talk about this, because although, you know, I am out to most of my friends, you know, there are still places where I'm not, and sometimes it can feel a little suffocating. So I think it's fun to have a place like my channel where I can talk about literally anything. Guys, this video isn't scripted, and I'm going to try to keep it, I don't know, I'm going to try to not get too much into detail into anything, because or else I'm going to be here for like 3 hours. This is a really long story. I'm also in the A spectrum, but I'm not going to talk too much about this in this video, although this definitely affected the way I saw my sexuality, and my attraction to girls was definitely affected by the fact that I am in the A spectrum. I think if I had to put a label on it, I'm probably demisexual, but this one, I don't have a very long story. It was just like I read what being asexual was, and I thought that kind of sounds like me, and that was about it. This was how I found out I was part of the A spectrum, so it's not that interesting of a story, which is fine. Well, a lot of people these days are finding out their sexualities this way. This wasn't the way I found mine. It's a really long story, as I said. So anyway, let's talk about it. I think this should be fun, so let's go. Now, hello everybody. So my name is Joanna, but I also like to be positive sometimes. So yeah, when I was a kid, I didn't really have any celebrity crushes. I didn't really, you know, have crushes on kids my age, on boys my age. I had one celebrity that I would tell everybody was my celebrity crush in case I got asked, and it was Nick Jonas, and it was because I really liked Introducing Me from High School Musical. Do you know? Camp Rock 2. I really like this song, and you'll probably notice this because I think I have sung it in at least like 3 videos at this point. I really like this song, and I did back in the day. I don't know how I feel about this hair. It's falling on my face. I feel like I'm in emo, and then there's, you cannot see my gay earrings that I wore specifically for today. So that's sad. When I was a kid, I didn't have really, you know, celebrity crushes. I didn't think of anyone this way. And I remember just feeling very uncomfortable with, do you know when you're a kid and like your friends see you hanging out with a boy and they're all like, oh, you like him. I sort of hated that. There was a boy in my 5th grade class who we used to compete with each other to see which one of us would get the best grades in book reports. He won, which is so annoying. But anyway, people used to ship me with him all the time when I was 10 years old. And I knew that I didn't like him, and that made me really uncomfortable in a way I couldn't really put into words, and I didn't understand why. But I've always been a pretty assertive person. The moral of today's video, I'm very passive, and I'm very, how do you say that? I'm a pathological people pleaser, guys. So I really struggled with standing up for myself and being like, this is making me uncomfortable, especially because this was so common. And I myself did this to other people. I'd be like, Mary likes John, because they were like talking to each other on break. This was a culture that I participated in. So I felt really weird trying to push back against it. And so yeah, when I was a kid, this was my relationship with romantic love. And then I began growing up. And do you know how people say some kids grow faster, some kids grow slower? I definitely was a kid that I took my time to grow up. I was still playing with Barbies when I was about to enter the 8th grade. Like, I was 12, still playing with my Barbies, still watching Disney Channel. I still watch Disney Channel now that I am almost 19 years of age. So this is not a good metric, but you know what I mean. And so when my friends and, you know, people my age were having their first kisses and liking people for the first time, I was so outside of this world. Like, this was not something I was even thinking about. It also didn't help, again, that I am the A spectrum. In a way that a lot of people find out their sexualities is by being attracted to someone of the same gender as them, but I didn't feel attraction the same way other people did. So basically, I had never thought about any of this until one day. I was 11 or 12, I don't remember exactly, and I was watching a documentary with my sisters. I don't remember the title of the documentary, but it was this documentary where a bunch of people were talking about their lives, just their life experiences. It was a bunch of like very diverse people from a lot of, cultures and countries and this type of stuff. Do you like my slippers? They're called Oz because of Oz from Buffy. Anyway, and I remember I was watching that documentary and a woman was talking about how when Ellen came out as a lesbian, she saw her parents talking about how gay people were going to hell, about how all of these bad things were going to happen to her, and she felt super bad because she knew she liked women and she didn't know how to act and how to feel about that. And I remember I watched that interview and a question popped into my head, and it was a question that I had never made myself. No one had ever made to me. Like, it was something that had never crossed my mind before, and it was, what if I liked girls? Now, keep in mind, at this point, as I said, I don't remember if I was 11 or 12, but I was not interested in anyone romantically. I had never felt attracted to anyone. So I really had no way of knowing. Like, I knew I had never felt anything for a boy, but I figured that that was because of my age and because of the nature of who I was as a person and not because of sexuality, which is stupid because sexuality has to do with the nature of a person, but you know what I mean, right? And so I thought this, and immediately I got an anxiety stomachache, and it lasted 3 days. I'm not kidding. I remember specifically feeling so anxious and so sick by that it lasted 3 days. Now, before we continue the story, I feel like I should explain my background because this matters as to why I had such an extreme reaction. I was raised Catholic. My parents pretty big on the Catholic Church. I have mentioned a couple of times in this channel, but I went to Catholic school up until the 9th grade. I changed schools in Brazilian high school that begins in the 10th grade. 9th grade is still a part of middle school for Brazil. So I went to Catholic school up until the 9th grade. My whole life, ever since from daycare, my daycare was a Catholic daycare. We prayed before eating when we were like 2. I remember this very vividly. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but I also talked about this on my least favorite book videos, I think. But I have a story of when I was like 4 years old. I was in daycare, and I went to one of the other kids on daycare, and she was another little girl, right? And there's a saying in Portuguese that is, "Quem mostra a língua pede beijo," which means a person who shows their tongue wants a kiss. And the saying exists, I think, because when you're a kid, like, you do this a lot, like, to be annoying to other kids, and so they created this so you could see, oh, so you want a kiss, and when you're like 2, kissing someone is disgusting, so you're like, no. And I think that this is what we use this expression for. But I specifically asked that girl to show me her tongue because I wanted to tell her, you want a kiss, and I wanted to kiss her. And now here's the thing, I don't think this was like, I was 4, I had no idea what consent was, I had no idea what being gay was, I had no idea, I don't know if I knew, like, what kissing romantically someone meant. Like, I have no idea what was going through my mind because I was way too young. I don't remember. But I remember specifically, this is such a vivid memory in my mind because this was the first time that I ever got in trouble in school. This is such a vivid memory because this was the first time I did something that made me, be put on timeout, that I was scolded by. And I remember as a kid not understanding what I had done wrong. And nowadays, obviously, I would have had a conversation with a child being like, you cannot kiss people without asking them first. You cannot kiss people without making sure that they want to be kissed, just asking them to show their tongue and kiss them. This is not consent. Like, I would explain this to a child in a way they would understand. But this was not what I was told. I have no idea what they told me that I did wrong, but I just remember the feeling that I have with this memory is not understanding why what I had done was wrong. And so I think that I had such a strong memory attached to the only gay experience I had in my life at that point, with something bad, with getting in trouble for the first time because I'm such a lawful good person, guys. I hate breaking rules. One time I skipped class with my friends because they convinced me in the 9th grade, and I went home crying after it. So this was something that got really attached to my memory, I think. And not only that, but as I said, I was raised Catholic, pretty Catholic environments. And here's my thing, my parents were never politically conservative. They were never that, but they were still very Catholic. Going to Catholic school, you are bound to just be surrounded by very conservative people. And so my relationship with gay people was, I don't think I knew what being gay was when I was a kid, but I remember just always feeling really awkward around this topic. And I think it is because maybe I had an inkling that maybe this had something to do with me and I didn't realize at the time. Besides that, I was bullied pretty hard in middle school. Usually I sugarcoat when I'm talking about my middle school days, but yeah, I was bullied pretty hard. It was not a fun time. And I already felt super ostracized and different from everyone, so I didn't want something else that was going to make me different and feel even more, like an other to those people. So I think that these were the main things that were making me so anxious about this idea. And the only way I was able to make my anxiety go away and make my stomachache go away was by gaslighting myself. Yeah, I kept on thinking to myself, Joanna, you are not a lesbian because when you were 7 years old, you thought James from Big Time Rush was cute. And this is such a stupid thing because first of all, I was 12 at this point, okay? Or 11. If this was really the justification I was trying to give myself, this was 5 years ago, Joanna. Can you not think of a single boy that you find cute from nowadays? And no, I couldn't. But yeah, I gaslit myself. I was like, Joanna, you never even liked anyone. Why are you being so upset by this? And I want you guys to notice that the question that popped in my head was not, what if I was a lesbian? The question that popped into my head was, what if I liked girls? But my fear was of being a lesbian. Yay, fun times. So after this, I began being the most awkward person around topics of sexuality that you can think of. When I was in the 8th grade, I liked a girl for the first time, and one of my friends, he wasn't my friend at the time, he was my sister's friend, but I was kind of friends by association, by being sisters with my sister, He was the first person to come out in our class, and so for the first time, I was, studying with a gay person. I mean, most of my friends from that time ended up coming out too. Again, at the time, we didn't know, so he was the first person to come out, and that was the first time I was interacting with an out gay person in real life, and I was feeling so freaked out by that because I was trying to run away from any topic of gayness as much as I could, because whenever I saw anything that had gay people on it, and more specifically that had sapphics on them, this was the biggest issue. I freaked out. I remember I was reading the Red Queen series for the first time during this time, and in this book series, there's one character, Evangeline. She's a lesbian, and I remember I read the scenes of her with her girlfriend. I don't remember their actual relationship, but I remember reading that and I was like, I cannot read this anymore. But yeah, back to what I was talking about, which was I liked a girl for the first time. So yeah, now I'm 13 years old. I have mentioned a lot of times that 8th grade was not a fun time for me, and it wasn't because there was a lot of stuff going on. But during this time, I was friends with one of the popular girls in my class, and the popular girls from my class had a friend group that they had a name for. Basically, I began hanging out with this girl. I'm going to give her a fake name or else this is going to be really confusing. I'm going to call her, I don't know, Annie. Okay, Annie. So Annie was this popular girl, and we began talking to each other at the end of the 7th grade because she liked Percy Jackson, just like I did. Yes, there are straight Percy Jackson fans out there. Yes, she was straight. I'm already spoiling the ending of the story. Nothing happened, obviously. Yeah, me and Annie became friends because of Percy Jackson at the end of the 7th grade, and then in the 8th grade, in Brazil, at least in my school back in the day, we used to have fixed tables where we would sit during class. We called that mapa da sala, which means classroom map, and so we used to sit beside each other, and my teachers back in the day used to do this thing a lot where they would be working pairs with the person sitting next to you. So I used to do a lot of schoolwork with her because she sat right next to me. And guys, I've mentioned this in the past, I do have social anxiety, mas I began speaking Portuguese, but I am a big extrovert. Yeah, being an extrovert with social anxiety is really sad, but here's the thing. I love talking to new people once I get through my anxiety. I love getting to know new people. I love understanding how people think, what they see. It's really one of the most fascinating. I love human connection. I've talked about this in the past. And so I remember I used to be so excited to talk to this girl and I felt this need to talk to her all the time. And I thought that this was because I was a big extrovert who liked talking to people in general, and this was just more of that, more of me being really into talking. And so I thought these feelings that I felt towards her were that. But then what happened was, this girl, I wouldn't hang out with her outside of school, and she would tell me that she wasn't allowed to spend recess with me because the girls from our class wouldn't talk to her if she didn't spend recess with them. This is one of the examples of the toxic friendship going on there. And so we really depended on schoolwork to talk to each other, and then we ended up, our teachers changed our places, and so we stopped doing schoolwork together, and so we stopped talking to each other. So yeah, basically that happened, and I stopped talking to her, and I felt so depressed about it. I was so sad, and at the time I sort of justified that because I was also upset that I had lost some other friends. At the time I was feeling really lonely in general, and there was some stuff going on in my personal life that were making me upset, so I thought this was just a little bit more of that, like a combination of everything. But like, it isn't really platonic when you are listening to Taylor Swift, Let's Kiss, and crying about it, you know? And you know, I didn't relate to the actual kiss part because I never kissed her. As I said, she was very straight. But I related to the feeling of being like, I never thought we were going to end. I never thought our relationship was going to end, and now it's ended, and I'm very upset about it. And so this was what I related to at the time, this feeling. I also used to listen to The Story of Us, thinking about the two of us. This one, it was even more specific because now I'm standing alone in a crowded room and we're not speaking, and I'm dying to know, is it killing you like it's killing me? Yeah. This was the thing I think that bothered me the most, and that made me realize that maybe my feelings weren't as platonic as I thought they were, because that was killing me inside. Like, not being close to her anymore was something that was hurting me so much. I had no idea if this was even like making her mildly upset, and I don't think it did. Like, here's the thing, guys, after I changed schools, I never talked to that girl again. I have no idea. I mean, I know what she's doing with her life because I know what most people that went to middle school with me are doing, but I haven't spoken to her in a long time. Nowadays, I don't think we would ever get along. We are two very different people. But yeah, I remember being so upset by this, and I was hurting so much, and I couldn't understand why. And like, here's the thing, friendships ending is also an extremely sad thing. It's also something that it's upsetting, that you're going to be really sad about. But I know for a fact that I wasn't feeling those things just because of friendship feelings, okay? Nowadays that I can understand what liking someone feels like, I know for a fact that I did like her. And this was the biggest thing at the time when I liked her. I didn't understand what liking someone felt like. I had no idea because I had never liked anyone, and I thought that when I was going to like a boy. This was what I thought was going to happen. So I never associated those feelings. And then when I was in high school and I began liking other people, I was like, oh, I kind of understand now. And so yeah, 8th grade, I'm still completely trying to run away from gayness as much as I could because just thinking about it made me really anxious. But then the 9th grade happened, and here's the thing, guys, when I was in the 9th grade, I began watching One Day at a Time. This is, I guess, the biggest thing that happened to me. I watch it one day at a time, and if you don't know, One Day at a Time is a sitcom about a Cuban-American family, and the main character is Penelope, who has 2 children, Alex and Elena is a lesbian, and there's a whole arc about her coming out. And I remember I was watching this show, and I was watching that for the first time, and I was letting myself for the first time not to feel anxious about something that had to do with sexuality. Something you guys have to understand also is that I am as I said, I'm a rule follower, people pleaser. I was terrified of doing things outside of what I'm supposed to do. So I didn't even tell anyone that I was watching One Day at a Time because I was embarrassed that I was watching something that my sisters weren't watching too. Like, this is a level of guilt I felt over some dumb stuff. And so I began watching that. And for the first time, I let myself watch something with gay characters without being too terrified by it, without wanting to run away from it. And I think that this really began to normalize the idea of lesbians in my head. I know this might sound a little stupid, but when you are so used to running away from things because you're afraid that they are going to make you question other things, like, this was a pretty big deal that I was allowing myself to watch that. And so I began just trying to ease my mind into the idea of liking girls. And this was the moment that I sort of thought, I think maybe I liked Annie. I was able to sort of admit to myself that. And you would think that this is a big step, but no, because that was the moment I realized I liked a girl, but it wasn't the moment I realized I liked girls in general. I didn't let myself think that. I was just like, yeah, I guess those feelings I had for Annie were a little bit more than platonic, but I didn't let myself to think beyond that. I was like, yeah, I liked a girl one time, and this is the situation. Now, keep this in mind. Throughout this whole time, I was not interested in any boys. I was not thinking about being with any boys. But I didn't even let myself think that. I didn't even let myself be like, isn't it weird that I have liked a girl and have never liked a boy and never think about boys this way? I don't know, and that was sort of how I kept going. Guys, another factor that I feel like it's important to comment on my story is that I was never someone that people thought I was not straight. I'm going to go on a tangent here and a little bit of a rant if I might indulge in this, because I am a person who most people that I meet and I come out to them, they're all like, you look straight. And like, here's the thing, guys. I know I don't dress very much like a gay person, whatever that means. I know my hairstyle. I have a side part. I know that. I know all of these things, okay? My hair isn't colorful. I don't know what other gay stereotypes I'm not a part of. A lot of people would talk a lot about how they were 100% certain that I was straight and all of these things. And I myself being so against talking about my sexuality because I didn't want to question it. I also fed into this narrative. So it was this thing that kept on building itself. It was like the snowball effect of me not wanting to address that maybe I liked girls, and then other people being like, you don't look like someone who could like girls. And then all of these things just, kept on building up to the point where I just felt like it made no sense for me to like girls because of the way I look. Guys, I'm going to tell you something. There's not a specific way for you to look to be a lesbian. There's not a specific way for you to look to be bi. There's not a specific way for you to look to be straight. These are all based on nothing, on the voices of our heads. We made this all up. These are all social constructs. And I kept on thinking, I'm not gay enough. I'm not a lesbian because I'm not gay enough. I have long hair. This is something I forgot to mention. When I was younger, I had really long hair, like below my hips, and I used to wear long flowery dresses. So a lot of people thought I was like one of those like very modest evangelical Christians or like a Jehovah Witness, but I was just kind of like, I don't know, I had a weird sense of style. Like one time, one of my first days in high school, I was wearing a dress and I had really long hair, and one of the boys in my class came to me and asked me if I was like one of those very traditional evangelicals. And it was really funny to me because my family isn't even evangelical. I was raised a Catholic. You couldn't be more wrong. But anyway, so yeah, I didn't fit really into descriptions of what being gay was like, and I kept on thinking I cannot be a lesbian because I'm not gay enough, which is so stupid because as far as I'm aware, as Claire Devling would say, the entry-level requirement here is fancy girls, and I do plenty of that.
What? You fancy girls? Well, that's sort of an entry-level requirement, Erin.
But yeah, I felt really insecure, and I felt like I had this big imposter syndrome that someday I was going to come out to someone and they were going to be like, you're only doing this for attention, you're only doing this because you want to be popular, which is so stupid because the whole point of why I didn't want to be a lesbian in the first place was because I didn't want to feel any more different than anyone else. And I kept on thinking, like a lot of times I would be like, oh, I think I liked Annie, and then I would be like, no, you didn't, you're just thinking that because you want attention. And then I'm like, but you didn't even tell anyone that you liked Annie. Like, how are you getting attention from this? And it was this really confusing thing. Like, my head was really confused about all of these things, and I had a side of me that really wanted me to, think about these things and, like, be honest with myself, and the other side was like, no, and it was really confusing. And it was even worse because I'm not really a person to talk about feelings. I know this might be shocking considering the video that I'm making now, but it's a lot easier for me to talk about feelings in English than it is in Portuguese. In Portuguese, I wouldn't have said half of the things I'm saying in this video because I would be too shy to say it. I don't like talking about my feelings. I don't like thinking about my feelings. In English, it's a little better because I feel more disconnected from it since it's not my first language. Yeah. I felt super awkward talking about this with other people. Even after I realized I was into girls, I had a pride flag in my high school locker, and one day a girl came to me and was like, this is your locker? I thought you were straight. No, she said that, but before that she asked me if I was from the valley because it's an expression in Portuguese, do vale, from the valley, which means that you were gay. Being gay is being from the valley. So she asked me if I was from the valley, and I said I was shaking. And the only reason why I answered yes was because I was with one of my friends there, and my friend knew that I liked girls, so I had to answer the other girl right, because if I lied to her, my friend would be like, why are you lying? And that would be embarrassing to me. So I said, yes, I am from the valley. And she was like, I thought you were straight. I was shaking after that. Like, I felt super weird talking about it. So yeah, I didn't really like talking about these things. And so this led to a lot of people just assume a lot of things about me, and I felt super awkward about it. But yeah, then I got into high school, and my high school, when I was there, and back in the day, we were known as like the gay high school in my town because most of the people in my class were gay. And because I was surrounded by so many queer people and so many people from different identities, I, for the first time, felt comfortable enough to think about these things, because for the first time, I didn't feel like I was going to be different by having these feelings and by confronting them. And this was something that was really important to me, and I think that this is something that I guess a lot of queer people understand how meaningful it is to have someone or like a group of people that hear you talking about something, about your queer experiences, and normalizing it. I needed to normalize that in my mind, because in my head I was the only person going through these things. I was the only person thinking these thoughts. I was the only person struggling with these feelings that I didn't understand. And for the first time, having people that felt the same way as me and that had similar experiences and that were out already, that was really life-changing and important to me, and I'm really grateful that I had the chance of this happening to me. And so since I was in a better environment, I was able to think about that more, and I was able to, you know, figure stuff out more. And so I was like, okay. And so when I was 15, I was like, I guess I am sure that I like girls. And so I came out as bi. Here's the thing, guys. I have mentioned up until this point that I had never liked a man. I had never been attracted to any man, and that is true. But at this point, I had never questioned my attraction to boys, which is so stupid because, like, what attraction? You felt nothing, Joanna. And yeah, this is the funny part. I had no attraction towards the boys, but I didn't even realize that because to me, the idea of liking boys was just obvious. It was something that I didn't even have to question. It was always there on the table. And so this made things a little harder for me because then at some point in high school, I was the only person in my friend group that was not dating anyone. I was the only single person in a 9 girls friend group. I was the only person who wasn't dating anybody. And so my friends were really trying to find someone for me to date, you know. And there were boys who were interested in me, and they were all really nice people. Some of them were my friends, some of them were people that I hung out with. These were all fine people, had nothing against them. But I couldn't bring myself to want to do anything with them in any romantic sense. And I would make up all these excuses in my head as to why I didn't want anything with them. I would be like, oh, this boy, he's really nice, but we live way too far from each other. That would be complicated. Or like, this boy is nice, but he's a year younger than me, and that's weird. Or this boy is really nice, but I don't really know him that well. And I would make up all these excuses in my head. And like in the first 2 boys, that was fine, you know, that wasn't questionable at all. By the 5th person I had rejected with this type of answers, I began to really think to myself, I think there's something wrong here. I still remember one time I was complaining about being single, I'm pretty sure, and my sister answered, Joanna, you kind of are single by choice, you know, like there are plenty of boys interested in you. And I answered, but I don't like any of them. And my sister said, you don't like them because you don't give them a chance. And at the time, obviously, my sister had no way of knowing that I was even questioning if I liked boys at all because I was out as bi. She thought I was into boys. But, you know, that really made me think about it because I began thinking, yeah, I really don't give them a chance. And I really don't want to give them a chance. And why don't I want to give them a chance? And so there I went on my second journey. After accepting I liked girls, I had to accept I didn't like boys. And this was a lot harder to do. I think we all, maybe as gay people who first came out as bi, we have that experience of maybe thinking being bi would be easier because there's still a chance that you're going to end up with someone of a different gender and that you're going to live a normal heterosexual life. And like, I don't want to make this video the oppression Olympics, okay? I don't think lesbians or bi people suffer more or less than each other. I think we should all be united, holding our hands and fighting against all prejudice. Guys, I don't know if I was 100% clear on what I was trying to say, but what I was trying to say is that I don't think lesbians or bi people face more or less discrimination from each other. I think we are all oppressed in different ways. And obviously my thoughts that being bi would lead me to have a straight life was wrong because I would never live a straight life because I would have been bi. I'm not bi, but what I'm trying to say is that bi people who are dating people of the opposite gender are not suddenly straight. Their experiences as bi people are not suddenly erased because they are dating someone of the opposite gender. And obviously my thoughts that a life like that would be better came from some ideas about bisexuality that I had that were not right, and that I do understand where they were coming from, but they were not right. And what I'm trying to say is this is not the oppression Olympics. We are all struggling and we should all be nice to each other, to our own community. So I'm not going to get into the merit of this discourse because I think it's stupid and I don't want any biphobia or lesbophobia in Pride Month here, okay? But when I realized that that was not going to happen to me, that was really frightening and really like something that I didn't want to even think about. And so again, I had to go on my own journey of normalizing lesbians in my head. I had gone on my journey of normalizing sapphics in general. Now I had to go with the lesbians. And I did that through watching a lot of YouTube videos. This is why I'm making this video. While I was figuring out my sexuality, the one thing that helped me the most was watching tons of videos of people coming out. I watched every single coming out as a lesbian video you can think of. Every time when I used to think about my sexuality back in the day, I saw it as something that I should be. I felt a lot of grief over it. Whenever I thought about the possibility of being a lesbian, I felt a lot of grief over the life I thought I was going to have and I was never going to have. I felt a lot of grief over the relationships I was going to lose. And you know, when I was with my friends who were also queer, I was able to feel less lonely about that, but I still had that inevitable, really sad sinking feeling in my heart that what I was doing was going to be really lonely and what I felt was really sad. And then by watching videos of other people who had gone through similar things and who had similar experiences, I for the first time realized that I wasn't alone in what I was going through, and that made me for the first time feel proud of who I was. For the first time, I stopped associating my sexuality to sadness and grief, and I began associating it with pride, with being happy with who I am. And this was really important. I know this was really cheesy, but it's Pride Month, so I can make this type of cheesy comments. Guys, the sun is so hot, I'm like melting here. Which is funny because it's winter. It was supposed to be really cold, and it's not. And so the reason why I'm making this video at the end of the day is that I'm sure someone is going to find this video that may relate to it. And I just want you to know that things do get better. And at some point, if you're not in this moment yet, someday you will look at yourself and look at this part of yourself and you're going to feel happy about it. You're going to feel a warm feeling of acceptance, and that's really a nice thing. And I hope it happens to you. I'm still not totally there, and I don't know when I will be, because as I mentioned in this video, I am a pathological people pleaser, and it's really hard to be in places that aren't as accepting as my high school was, and sometimes it can feel pretty lonely and isolating again. So this is definitely a feeling that fluctuates, but at the end of the day, when I think to myself and I think about who I am, nowadays I don't have negative feelings towards that. I feel pretty happy, and I hope that this is something that happens to all of you who are watching this video. No matter your sexuality, your gender identity, even if you are straight, I hope you feel happy about who you are. And so this is this video, guys. It's really hot in here. H-O-T-T-O-G-O, you can take me hard to go. I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to post this video. Thank you so much for watching this video. Happy Pride Month. I promise I'll be back with actual content soon. And now, if you didn't notice before, I think now you'll understand why I have such a knack for defending lesbians on this channel. And yeah, guys, this is it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. And yeah, bye-bye. Should I sing something? I don't know. Bye.